What's up, everybody? Mike Manzer here with another Manzer Faust Productions video. And following up on yesterday's video talking about Vinegar Syndrome's big halfway to Black Friday sale happening this Friday. Yesterday I discussed all of the Vinegar Syndrome releases from the past bunch of years that will all be on sale. Once again, to remind you all, everything that's on sale is from before January of this year. So anything that's come out this year, as far as their usual lineup, is not going to be on sale. Following up yesterday, I wanted to talk about partner labels, and this is probably going to be a fairly long video. Just make some recommendations for my favorite partner label releases. I got something in the works. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's going to be sort of a series focused on partner labels. And once we get into June, which is Partner Label Awareness Month, or whatever they're calling it, Spotlight, I will be doing the first episode of that series. So, cool stuff for you to check in on coming up. But yeah, so this is all in alphabetical order of the name of the label, and some of them I got one title, a couple of them I got two titles. I don't have every label. There's some labels I have nothing from. There's a couple that I decided not to show anything from because they weren't really my favorite releases from that label. And as I said in the last video, if you have any recommendations or you want to talk about something you want to pick up, stick it down in the comments down there. Let's have a discussion. And yeah, so let me get into this with the first label. This is probably the oldest label, partner label that OCN, the distribution service for Vinegar Syndrome, had picked up, and that is the American Genre Film Archive, also known as AGFA, and this is the release of the AGFA Horror Trailer Show. And this is, you know, your trailer compilation kind of disc. You saw a lot of these years ago with the 42nd Street Forever series. There's also, I believe, Drive-In Delirium does these as well. So this is AGFA. The main feature is about 80 minutes of various trailers. Some of them you've seen before. A couple of them they've dug out of kind of obscurities. Great commentary over these of how they sourced a lot of them and some of the different elements that they had to discover. But what I really enjoyed was the bonus film of the AGFA Horror Trailer Show, Video Rage, which is more of a low budget kind of affair. It's hosted by this kind of like cloaked kind of Grim Reaper kind of character on really shitty VHS stock. And a lot of the films that they cover in this trailer compilation are SOV trailers. A lot of them I hadn't seen before. You know, you have your classics. I do believe Boardinghouse is obviously in there. You got Blood Cult, Horoscope, a lot of the classics. But you do have a couple of more obscure ones, Twisted Visions. Just really cool set of trailers. I can't remember if that one has a commentary on it as well. I don't believe it does, but very cool stuff on this. And if you're a fan of trailer compilations, and this is great at parties, you know, like just throw this on in the background. Very cool stuff. And another AGFA release, this one working with Bleeding Skull, who is kind of like the internet's expert on shot on video, low budget filmmaking, no budget filmmaking, that sort of thing. And probably one of my favorite AGFA releases. That's Boardinghouse, the classic SOV. I believe it was shot on film, but it was later edited. No, it was shot on video, but edited on film so it could get theatrical distribution. And I believe this was the first shot on video film to be made for theatrical market. And this is crazy. I love Boardinghouse, and basically it's a vanity project of this of the director. Let me get his name. God damn. John Wintergate. John Wintergate was this kind of like, I can't remember what his actual thing was, but him and his wife had a band and had a bunch of women. So basically, he is this like kind of telekinetic guru kind of guy who's teaching all of these women how to defend themselves through like the use of telekinesis and everything like that. So you have a lot of this like weird kind of like 80s like music kind of stuff going on. Really crazy effects. Just, it's a cool vibe. It's very heady at times, and at other times the stupidest thing you could ever imagine. The shot on video aspect is done very well, used very well throughout the film, and yeah, Boardinghouse, if you want like a good time capsule into just classics SOV films, but you also want that heavy what the fuck am I watching kind of element, this is definitely one to pick up. And AGFA does an awesome release for it. Boardinghouse. So next up for labels, I wanted to highlight one of my personal favorites. All their releases are solid, but I wanted the one release that really kind of sells it the best and gives you everything that the label is known for. And it's my first purchase from this label, and that's Buster Keaton Rides Again and Helicopter Canada. So what I love about Canadian International Pictures is the amount of extras and the amount of information surrounding the film that they do. So first up, Buster Keaton Rides Again is a documentary on kind of Buster Keaton's career up to making his final film in, I think it was like I believe it's like 63. It's called The Rail Rodder, which is kind of a Buster Keaton style silent slapsticky kind of affair, but it's him getting a railroad car and kind of going across Canada, and it's sort of used as like a Canadian like tourism promotional kind of thing. He sees all the different parts of Canada and kind of plays off of them and everything like that. It's pretty entertaining. So the documentary about him making it is a guy pretty much at the end of his career. There's a lot of crazy behind the scenes kind of things of him working with a sort of modern day film crew, but he comes from obviously an older kind of aesthetic. So it's really interesting to see those dynamics work off of each other throughout that. And then Helicopter Canada is another really interesting documentary where it's all footage of Canadian landmarks shot from a helicopter, but it also works in narration from local natives and local kind of people. I think there's like a couple of like, I don't know what they're called, but like what we would call senators in United States. Um, you also have a lot of like native music, traditional music played throughout. Very cool, great aesthetic. I have a projector in my bedroom that I love showing that on. It looks utterly amazing. And also included are a bunch of short films made by the filmmakers that worked on Buster Keaton Rides Again and The Railrodder. And a lot of these are kind of like commercial length or kind of short films developed sort of in promotion of the local labor campaigns and labor organizations. So it tells it there's some good animation, there's some short kind of silent film, slapsticky kind of stuff. All really interesting stuff, and what these discs really do a great job of is like showing this wider range of filmmaking in Canada, which is pretty interesting and something that we don't talk about a lot. So yeah, a lot of great releases from Canadian International Pictures. So next up, we got Circle Collective, and they kind of have sort of a foot in the more outsider kind of documentaries. So documentaries more about like kind of lesser represented subcultures, and a couple of original films, usually low budget kind of stuff. So one of my favorites that they've released is also such a great discovery is Beauty Day. And this is a story about this young man named Ralph Zavadil, who had a show up on public access in Canada called the Captain Video Show, and it would basically be him just doing all these crazy stunts in his backyard and filming it, and there's like clips of him smashing TVs and riding around on this homemade skateboard with like a engine attached to it, all this crazy kind of stuff. But what he really became popular was like doing snow tobogganing off of his roof and all these other kind of stunts. And he became very famous when one of his stunts went seriously wrong. He basically wanted to jump off of his ladder into the pool as kind of a gimmick to take off the pool cover from his pool. And he's like, you ever want to do, you hate taking the cover off your pool, let me make it cool. So he goes to do that, but as he's about to dive off, the ladder shakes and he ends up falling and breaking his neck on the side of the pool. Luckily, one of his neighbors was home to call the hospital, but he actually became kind of a big figure due to this. It got leaked out to stuff like Real TV and stuff back in the day, where they'd show clips of real life injuries kind of things, and he was definitely a real starting point for people like Tom Green, the Jackass crew. He really fit in with some of that early kind of like Paulo Peralta kind of material for all the skate videos, the Bones Brigade kind of stuff. This fits in with a lot of that, but his actual story and talking about what got him into this like kind of entertainment and this kind of content back in the day is very fascinating. You really root for this guy throughout the entire film, and it does kind of follow him as he's trying to resurrect his career as Captain Video and do some of these stunts again. It's a very heartwarming, very powerful documentary about a guy, a lot of you probably don't know about. So, yeah, very cool Beauty Day. It's a ton of fun. He's a great character throughout the film. Really cool. And also from Circle Collective, another really cool, I've seen this a bunch of times back in the day, but sort of like what Canadian International Pictures does of uploading a shit ton of other stuff to the disc. This is definitely Circle Collective's kind of parallel to a lot of that. And that is Heavy Metal Parking Lot. Probably one of my favorite, like, you know, accidents to become popular. So basically, Heavy Metal Parking Lot, for those of you who don't know, there was a film crew that wanted to go film a Judas Priest show, but I believe they weren't allowed in. So they did the next best thing and showed up and interviewed the people waiting in the parking lot, tailgating before the Judas Priest show. And man, this is infinitely quotable. This became famous because one of the VHS tape copies of it ended up on Nirvana's tour bus in the early 90s and just got circulated a bunch of times. There's so many characters. There's Zebra Man, who has this whole, like, monologue on fucking Madonna and punk rock and all this other kind of stuff. All the famous quotable lines of, like, somebody asking, like, what would you do if, oh God, I can't remember. Rob Halford was here right now, and the woman says, I'd jump his bounds, and not realizing at that time that Rob Halford is homosexual, so he would not appreciate that, to say the least. So it's fun. It's only a 17-minute documentary, so you might be thinking to yourself, like, how are you gonna put that on a Blu-ray? Well, there's 2 of them, for your information, and also all the other documentaries made by these folks are on here. So it has a couple of, like, Where Are They Now kind of segments. There's a great 2-hour Zoom feature, which usually I don't like Zoom features, but this is played off pretty well, where they take all of the people featured in the video, interviewed and everything, and kind of have this reunion over Zoom, which is very cool to see. Like, a lot of these people did not realize this thing existed until they got called. It's like, yeah, we have this video of you back in, like, the 80s waiting outside of a Judas Priest concert. And it's just cool to see, like, where they are now and stuff like that. You got also another documentary on some of the people that have passed away. But we got Heavy Metal Parking Lot, Heavy Metal Basement, and its sequel, which is kind of cool. It's almost like a precursor to, like, what I'm doing, these, like, kind of vinyl community kind of videos. Obviously made before YouTube. The original was, at least. They have a sequel to it, which was done, I think, 2018. And basically, they go down in this guy's basement, and he goes over his collection of the Judas Priest vinyl. And very interesting guy. He has a lot of different variations on stuff, and they just kind of talk about Judas Priest. And then it follows up in 2018, about probably 20 years after they filmed the original, and his collection has, like, tripled, quadrupled in size. So it's really cool to see him go over all the old, like, ticket stubs and everything like that. And it's cool to see kind of a precursor to what we do on YouTube all the time now. You also have a documentary on venue that Led Zeppelin had played that was being demolished at one point. You got a guy who collects pinball tables, a little segment on him. You got You Can't Take Pictures in here, which I believe is a documentary about the Rolling Stones. They wanted to photograph one of their concerts and ran into some problems there. There's a guy who was part of the Library of Congress who had the biggest porn collection in the world. So they have a couple of interviews with him. So you get a lot on here. Very cool stuff. Very East Coast, like more Maryland, Baltimore kind of area, but very cool. If you get the chance, check this out. It's such a great release. Solid release. Next up, Death Crocodile, and really probably one of the best labels to kind of go in, like, these are films you would usually expect to show up on, like, a Criterion collection. So, a lot of great releases. They got some cool Russian sort of stop-motion Harryhausen kind of films. I've talked about some of those in the past. And one of the other things they've released a couple of are these Romanian animated films, and my favorite being Delta Space Mission. And I just recently watched this for the first time, and I love this film. It's so much fun. It's pretty short. I believe it's only like an hour and 10 minutes. And this takes, kind of your classic animation, European animation. It does have a vibe of Fantastic Planet, if you've ever seen that film. It's got a lot of that vibe, but also, kind of modernized into the 80s. This was made in 84. Sort of taking influence from things like heavy metal, which was, huge at the time, big for, animation. And, so it's just a cool story. It's kind of got this AI in the year 3084 that they have on this kind of space station, and it ends up falling in love with this alien journalist and wants her for their own, and the kind of things that it does to get possession of her. And very, very cool. You got this little space dog character. They call him Tins, and he's very entertaining throughout. Great soundtrack. Very, reminds me of, Radioactivity era Kraftwerk. Very lo-fi synthesizer kind of vibes. And the main theme is very, happy and triumphant sounding. Very cool. Just gorgeous animations throughout. Yeah, Delta Space Mission. And then, probably the one that everybody's going to talk about. I talked about it in a previous video, so I will not go too into depth on it. But that's Solomon King. They had the great promotional Indiegogo campaign for this release. And just great. The film looks amazing. This is a film that was not available, pretty much lost for a very long time. It's got a very lo-fi kind of aesthetic within the blaxploitation genre, and being very early in the genre's lifespan, it's very cool to see what they were able to do on such a low budget within this film. So, a lot of great features on how they were able to restore this film and everything like that. If you get the chance, you haven't yet, pick up Solomon King. It's a good time. Next up, Dekanalog. I only have a couple of releases, so there was one I wanted to talk about, and that's Keep an Eye Out. Great kind of French, a little bit of a crime cop film, but definitely played absurdly. Very French style of humor, but you also have a lot of I guess you could say Rashomon kind of elements, where one person will explain something kind of differently, and then kind of these absurd kind of misunderstandings. There's a death within the film, and one of the characters has to try to cover up the death in increasingly silly, kind of over the top ways. Just absurd. Real good time. Not much to really say about it without giving a lot away, but Yeah, real fun movie. So another label that, like Circle Collective I talked about earlier, really focuses on a lot of documentary kind of stuff and more like subcultural documentaries. Um, Very, much like in kind of a punk rock and metal kind of way, but they've released quite a few. They have a bunch of recent releases that I am not a fan of. The vinyl documentary they did was fine, but I mean, how many of those fucking documentaries are there? Um, some of them, just don't do it, and they become infamous recently for having kind of low print counts and selling out very quickly, and the movies on the discs not really being that worth it. But one release that I think is extremely worth it, and probably one of my favorite partner label releases, is Deadguy Killing Music. This is a documentary on the seminal 90s metalcore, metallic hardcore band Deadguy. You have a lot of elements within Deadguy's music of amphetamine reptile type bands like Jesus Lizard and Cows, some big black elements, but it also works well with a lot of the metallic hardcore kind of stuff that was happening at the time, sort of the victory sound, if you will, stuff like Earth Crisis or Chokehold, those kind of more heavy hardcore kind of bands, but they had a lot of metal elements. This, like I said before, uses a lot of noise rock elements, and this documentary focuses on them like kind of coming back together and discussing their career in the 90s. One of the seminal 90s hardcore records being Fixation on a Coworker. Such a good record. Really influenced a lot of bands you see today, like Couch Slut and My Friends in Intercourse. What's really cool about this disc, though, documentary's solid, but you also get, I believe, like 4 or 5 hours of live footage, live concert footage from Deadguy throughout the years, and it's really great to have it all on like one disc. Some awesome footage. This band was extremely chaotic live. You had a lot of just crazy stories from the road. Really great documentary. Really fun to dive into. Deadguy. Up next, Factory 25. And this was hard because there's a lot of releases that I adore from this label. But focusing on my favorites, we got Inspector Ike. This is a fun, kind of low-budget film made in the style of a old, kind of 70s police procedural kind of detective show. Very tongue-in-cheek, very self-aware. There's a whole segment in here where they teach you how to make chili. They give you like a chili recipe. What's really funny about this packaging is it comes with a chili recipe card, which I think is pretty funny. Just very wacky, played very straight. They definitely know their source material, but this was a blast, a lot of fun. And then you have some short films made by the cast and crew that were more of like a web series of this. So just fun all the way through. If you love those like goofy throwback 70s kind of vibes, very cool. And another one from Factory 25, from this was kind of popular with some people. I remember seeing it a long time ago because I knew about it from being one of the featured films of 1992 at the Sundance Film Festival, the same year that Reservoir Dogs debuted, and thus Quentin Tarantino's career started. And I remember back when I was a kid, the bonus feature on the Reservoir Dogs DVD was all about the 1992 Sundance Film Festival. It has interviews with a lot of these people. And one of the films I always knew about but didn't really rewatch until recently when I got this Blu-ray is In the Soup by Alexandra Rockwell, starring Steve Buscemi and Seymour Cassel. And this is a fun, very indie, basically Steve Buscemi as Adolfo Rollo, kind of aspiring filmmaker in New York City, in the early 90s, befriends a kind of eccentric gangster, mob boss kind of character who is there. He's going to sponsor the film. He's going to help him make the film. But he's got his own kind of like ideas on how filmmaking works and the kind of film he wants Adolfo to make. And at the same time, Adolfo has become infatuated with his next door neighbor. I believe she's Italian. I'm not sure. And he, is trying to get her to star in his film. He becomes somewhat obsessed and stalkerish about it. And it's kind of him trying to compete with this, like, crazy aging mob boss's vision of his art, and also, how to, woo this woman that he's obsessed with. It's just very fun. It's all in black and white, very low budget, but it's such an entertaining little early 90s indie gem. So if you get the chance, pick that up. In the Soup. What I like about Factory 25 is they always have decent sized booklets, a lot of information in there. They have kind of like a usual kind of format. I just love what they're able to do with a lot of these like kind of films. Factory 25 has been around a long time. They were a Blu-ray DVD distributor for a very long time. One of my favorite releases from them back in the day was a DVD of Until the Light Takes Us, which is a documentary focused on the Norwegian black metal scene, which if they do that on Blu-ray, I would adore that. That would be very cool. It's a great documentary if you have not seen it. It's on YouTube. It's pretty easy to find. So, up next, one of the other early partner labels back when I believe AGFA was the only other partner label, and releasing really great stuff. This is another one that also falls into that like kind of Criterion style releases, but these are on filmmakers and actors and stuff that are very well known, but some of their more early material that kind of gets looked over a lot of times. So yeah, one of my favorites is Walking the Edge from 83, 1983, starring Robert Forster and Joe Spinell. Just a great performance from Forster. He's a cab driver who comes in contact with a woman who has been hunted down by this gang. The gang is led by Joe Spinell. Actors I love. So he's trying to protect this woman from Joe Spinell's gang, who hangs out at a local punk bar, which is also a cool kind of element to the film. And just classic revenge, escort kind of drama. Has a little bit of a Death Wish kind of vibe to it, but not too much. It's got its own kind of identity to it. Very fun. Enjoyed Walking the Edge quite a bit. And another great Fun City release. I was flipped out when I saw this. I was so excited because I had just watched this film like a year or two before through the Criterion channel, and loved it. And seeing that it was getting a great release just blew me away. And that's Cutter's Way. I believe this is from '81. Yeah. So, Cutter's Way is sort of a neo-noir film about, I believe his name is Richard Bone. So, this is based on a story called Cutter and Bone book, I believe released in the 70s. Sort of a neo-noir piece about Bone, played by Jeff Bridges, who discovers a kind of murder plot involving a senator, and enlists the help of his disabled former Vietnam vet friend Cutter, and they both go, on this kind of search into, different kind of conspiracies and stuff. And Cutter is a hardcore alcoholic. He's a hardcore conspiracy theorist kind of character, played amazingly by John Hurd, one of his best performances. I'd put this up there with his role in Cat People as well. Just an amazing display of so many actors in this film. It's a very great story. The characters are hilarious and relatable. They fight, like real people and stuff. It's a great time, and it's one of the best like neo-noir style films made at its time. So solid film. Cutter's Way. Up next, a release from Kani, a label that definitely focuses a lot on Asian kind of filmmaking, and going along with a lot of the Category 3 stuff that Vinegar Syndrome has been putting out lately. We got Viva Erotica from 1996, and this is a film about a down in his luck kind of art house filmmaker who had two major successes with his kind of art house kind of films, but in order to save some money, his executives want him to make a Category 3 film, which is something very low budget and easy to sell. So this kind of follows him along, making this film, working with extras, working with the cast, and working with the crew, and all the different shenanigans that go on. This does have quite a bit of like a vibe to it that kind of reminds me of 80s kind of teen films. So like the classics of like One Hot American Summer, or Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's got that kind of like upbeat to it, but it's also got some cool like kind of surrealist dream hallucination kind of stuff going on. It does play up a lot of dark black humor very well in this film as well. There's some very uncomfortably hilarious stuff within it. I just had a real good time. There's a lot of stars of Chinese Hong Kong films at the time, specifically Anthony Wong, who does a great performance in this. Yeah, just had a real good time with this one, Viva Erotica. Check it out. Up next, the One Music Box films, I believe. release I got, and this is another one of my favorites. This is one of those films, like, I show it to everybody. It's a great, like, party film. You know, you put it on at a party and just kind of have a good time watching it. It's got very much like a Spinal Tap, you know, band, kind of like a Detroit Rock City in a way as well and stuff. Just kind of a band, rise and fall kind of story. And that is Heavy Trip concerning the band Impaled Rectum. This is a Finnish film about a heavy metal band that, you know, just trying to become, you know, a big band. You know, they're just starting out. They got a singer who's very, like, self-aware and very, like, stage shy. You have a guitarist who is like this wannabe kind of guitar icon, like, you know, like a Eddie Van Halen kind of guy, but he has no original ideas, and everything he's doing has kind of been done before. You got a bass player who's kind of on the spectrum in a way, just zeroes in on, like, all these obsessive kind of, like, musical references and stuff, and you got a drummer who's just the stereotypical drummer party animal kind of character. The singer, his parents allow him to practice out of their basement. His dad is I believe actually it's the guitarist. The guitarist's dad is runs a slaughterhouse for reindeer, which is a very Finnish kind of thing. And one of the customers that comes to get reindeer blood runs a sort of Vakken style heavy metal festival in Norway. So they automatically run after him, give him their demo tape, and want to get featured on the show. And the singer of the band also works in a kind of mental, you know, invalid home, whatever you want to call it, facility, and he has to, you know, buy flowers for people every once in a while, and he falls in love with the flower girl that works at the store, and they work up a little bit of a relationship, only she's dating this kind of fucking real, like, shitty, scummy lounge singer kind of performer, and he has to kiss his ass in order to get on a show. So his band has kind of like a spot, kind of a I can't think of the word right now, but they have a spotlight, a sort of like introduction to the crowd. Unfortunately, their first show does not go well, and they end up not getting onto the festival. But they're still determined, so they decide they're going to go to Norway from Finland and get onto this show. And some of the goofiness that happens throughout this, they have a tragedy that happens pretty on in their journey, and the way they play off of that is fantastic. You got to play on the great line from Blues Brothers, "We're on a mission from God." One of them says, "We're on a mission from Satan." It does have a lot of jokes towards, like, the Norwegian military, let's say, which is pretty fucking funny. It's just solid, like, comedy, metal comedy. Definitely would go well with, movies like Spinal Tap and stuff. Really fun, and I love Finnish music, culture. Real good time. Up next, great label doing very, like, SOV, lesser known, but great films within that genre. Just a lot of different vibes throughout and everything like that. So Anyway, the first release was an amazing documentary called Mail Order Murder, the story of Wave Productions. Now, Wave Productions is like one of my favorite like new discoveries. They were a custom video label in the 80s and 90s out of New Jersey, and people would send them, I think it was like a couple $100 and like one of their own like kind of custom scripts, and they would make a movie. There's a whole bunch of this that the guy behind this, Gary Whitson, had built on his property a bunch of different little buildings that would work as sets. So you have the mad scientist set, you have a big lake for like swamp kind of stuff in the back, and people would send them scripts and different treatments and everything to be made in their own little custom tapes. And Saturn Score has done a real great job of releasing a lot of these films on their own releases on Blu-ray, which is really cool, and they pack them with special features. This has a few special features of those films on here as well. Wave of Terror. You've got a lot of great interviews with the people involved in these films, which is cool to see, because a documentary like this, you kind of have kind of like a characterization of a certain scene. And what I love about this is you got the customers are almost treated with the utmost respect and just telling their story as straight as you possibly can. And you also see the amount of fun the filmmakers would have doing these like quick overnight kind of shoots, and pretty basic storylines to a lot of those, but it's a great like no budget, micro budget kind of filmmaking world. And they would become popular later on by selling their stuff at Chiller and all these other cons in the New Jersey area, and they became kind of celebrities within all that. You also got a lot of great stars like Tina Kraus, who would become big in the kind of no-budget film world, making a lot of these films. So really fun. Mail Order Murder, great documentary to get you into this kind of stuff. And another great release from Saturn's core, probably one of my favorite bomber SOV films, but wow, some great filmmaking, great storytelling, everything about it. And that's Shatter Dead. And this takes kind of like a typical zombie apocalypse film, but the twist on this is that you never die. You just become a zombie with whatever life-threatening injuries, and you kind of just wander around. It's kind of this future where there's really nothing to do, and you can't die, so it becomes kind of this miserable kind of wandering existence. You get some kind of boarding home situation. You got this cult going around murdering zombies. Just very nihilistic, brutal, very intense film, but made with such heart and such passion, and doing so much with so little. It's an incredible experience. It's relentlessly nihilistic, but if you can get past that, you will get a lot out of Shatter Dead. It's such a good movie. Highly recommend this one if you're up for that kind of thing. Okay, so up next, got a release from Terror Vision. Now, Terror Vision is since branched off and started their own kind of label outside of the OCN catalog. But luckily, you can still go and get a lot of their back releases that were released through OCN on their label still. A lot of them that will probably be available during the sale. But I will warn you to act quickly on a lot of these, because I feel like a good amount of them are either out of print or close to being out of print. And I wanted to talk about one of my favorite, releases that they've done, and sticking to the shot on video kind of theme, we got Video Violence, the classic double feature made by Gary Cohen. Great packaging on here of the video store within it, and then you got the classic artwork from the VHS release. And Video Violence is the SOV for me. A lot of people do talk about Boardinghouse and Blood Cult. Obviously, Things is another great later era SOV, but Video Violence is the SOV. It's what people probably think of when they think of shot-on-video horror films made for the video store market in the 80s. And this plays off its market perfectly. The first film takes place in a video store that distributes local snuff films made by the locals, and it becomes this whole kind of culture around it. And the second one is also really fun. I enjoy it. A lot of people don't really enjoy it that much, but the second one is the two of the main killers from the first film have their own late night kind of variety show kind of thing, complete with a band and some ass-kissing kind of Paul Schrader, not Paul Schrader, whoever the bald guy that used to be on Letterman's show back in the day, that kind of character. And it's just ridiculous fun, both of these movies. You can't take them too seriously. The effects are very, primitive and low budget, but they are effective. It's a fun story, a lot of great characters, and there's some great documentaries on here, specifically the SOV That Wouldn't Die, about, kind of the rebirth of Video Violence's popularity. It screened at a couple of VHS style festivals throughout the years. It's got a lot of great interviews with the filmmakers involved, and also has a bunch of different reviews from YouTubers and different internet personalities talking about Video Violence and its influence on them. Very cool. Just a lot of great stuff on the history of shot on video within this, and just one of the most fun couple of movies made in that genre ever. So, got a couple more. This is going very long, I apologize, but it's going to happen. So Utopia is really known for a lot of its great documentaries. I wanted to focus on one that's kind of more of a narrative film, fictional, and that is Crestone. Crestone is a kind of low-budget, sort of mockumentary, pseudo-documentary about a group of SoundCloud rappers who holed up in the desert town of Crestone, Colorado, after a pretty apocalyptic event. Pretty much the world is wiped out, and they're kind of hollowing out in this part of Colorado, very secluded from everything going on, still making content for SoundCloud, still making hip-hop music, smoking a ton of weed. They run one of them has his own weed farm, which you see on the flip cover here. A lot of great music. There's a score done by Animal Collective, which they have released on vinyl, which is gorgeous. Still don't have the vinyl yet, but I definitely want to pick that up. And yeah, just a very cool kind of film, very kind of ethereal, laid back kind of feel to the whole thing, but there is quite a bit of menace within. Just really fun if you get the chance. Crestone, very cool vibe. And the last one I wanted to talk about is from Yellow Veil, and Yellow Veil is releasing some great current young directors, kind of low budget, but very like kind of psychological. A lot of the themes within these films, very focused on like paranoia, mental illness, and um, you know, not really knowing what's going around you and what's real and what's fantasy. And I love this film. This really blew me away, and that is They Look Like People. And this is kind of a weird movie to talk about because it is kind of like a zombie apocalypse in the making kind of film, but it's almost in the background. What you really focus on in a lot of this film is it's almost like a kind of hangout film where it's these two guys, they haven't seen each other in years, and they're trying to become friendly again. One of them's trying to help the other one out. And there's some drama involved in that, but one of them is sort of planning for a oncoming apocalypse, sort of this zombie style invasion. And the whole movie plays it off like you don't know if this guy is serious or if he's just imagining a lot of this stuff. Even to the end of the film, you don't really know completely who knows about it, what's real, what's not, what's just projection. And it sticks with you. Like, it sneaks up on you at certain points, but really, like, kind of haunts you for a while after watching it. But it's a very good film. The acting is spectacular. A lot of these hangout films can kind of go sour if you don't like the characters, and these characters are awesome. They are fantastic played. The filmmaker and the actors behind this made another film called When I Consume You, which is available recently through Yellow Veil. Sort of similar vibe, but a different kind of story. So if you like this, check that one out as well. But this has a great vibe to it. A lot going on underneath the surface. And again, what can you do with very little? And they do a lot with this film. Very cool. Love this release. And Yellow Veil does a good job in showcasing these lesser known films. And yeah, that's what it's all about with these partner labels. It's shining light on genres and regions and all these other kind of things that a lot of people might just straight up neglect to look into. And yeah, so all of these are going to be on sale during this halfway to Black Friday sale. I wish you all luck in your searches. Hope you get a lot of great releases. Anything you got your eye on or you want to recommend, put down there in the comments. Like and subscribe. Got a lot of cool stuff coming up. After halfway to Black Friday sale, I'm going to show off what I end up getting at Archive. And also, when I get my subscriber package, probably at the beginning of next month, I will do my typical unboxing video and discuss a lot of those. And got some other fun stuff coming up. I got some record videos, so I haven't given up on a vinyl by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, so I got a lot of fun stuff coming up. This is going to be a fun week. This weekend, if you're in Connecticut, around the Wallingford area, make your way out to the Wham Leg for their final weekend of shows. We got some crazy Crazy fun shows happening all weekend. A lot of young bands just coming up. A lot of legendary bands that haven't done it in a long time. Just support your local scene and support a great venue that unfortunately is ending. So it meant a lot to me. I have a lot of nostalgia attached to that. I talked a lot about it in a recent video about Connecticut punk rock. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. And yeah, support all these local, kind of heroes that we have. Because unfortunately, a lot of these places are going extinct and closing up. And the more that we lose this kind of culture, the kind of more miserable living in a place like Connecticut will become. So go out there and show these people that they're appreciated, and give them some love, give them some money. And Archive is definitely on that list. They, deserve a lot, and they're doing great work, them and their partner labels and everyone involved. And this is the perfect weekend to do it because you get some great sales out of it as well. And that'll about do it. I will leave the Vinegar Syndrome website with all of the partner labels down in the description. And that'll about do it. So, I'm Mike Manzer. This has been a Manzer House production. The video. Always support physical media. Support the people behind a lot of your favorite music, your favorite films, and keep flying the flag for great art and all of this kind of stuff, because, it should not be taken for granted. It's very important to have this sort of stuff. And as always, stay fucking metal.